In this lesson, we are going to walk through the process of creating a data source in Remote Desktop Manager. The goal here is to understand where to go in the interface, what options are available, and what to expect after the data source is created. This is a foundational step, since the data source is where all of your connections, credentials, and configurations will live. We will start directly inside Remote Desktop Manager. From the main menu, you access Data Source Management by going to File and then selecting Data Sources. This opens the Data Source Management window, where you can view existing data sources or create a new one. To create a new data source, you click on Add a new data source. At this point, Remote Desktop Manager will prompt you to choose the type of data source you want to create. This could be a solo data source, like SQLite or Devolutions Hub Personal, or a team data source, such as Devolutions Server or Devolutions Hub Business. In this example, we'll be creating a Devolutions Hub Business data source. Once you select the type, you click Add to move forward. Next, you configure the connection settings for the chosen data source. The exact options you see here will always depend on the data source type, but generally, this is where you define things like the host or file path, authentication method, or any required credentials. Before completing the setup, it is a good practice to validate the configuration. You can do this by clicking Test Connection or Test Host, depending on the data source. This step helps ensure that Remote Desktop Manager can successfully communicate with the data source. When the configuration is complete and the connection test is successful, you click Add to finalize the creation. Once created, the new data source will automatically open and become active. If you ever need to switch back to it later, you can manually open it by selecting it from the data source drop-down list located at the top of the navigation pane. At this stage, you may also need to consider licensing if you're using an advanced data source. In some cases, you may have to add a Remote Desktop Manager license directly in RDM if you're not using Devolutions Server or Devolutions Hub as your data source. If you are using either of these, then Remote Desktop Manager will retrieve its license from the data source directly. If you'd like to know more about data sources and the various types that we offer, we would highly recommend that you consult our online documentation and knowledge base articles.